What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers. We are less than 48 hours removed from being on stage in front of a couple hundred people in New York City. I am dealing with something even more challenging tonight. It is the first night I am home alone with my daughter, who's asleep for now. Thank God. I gave her a long talking to about the live show and the importance of when we record, and she spit up all over me, and I changed into a different Badlands tee, and now she's sleeping. CR, how you doing? How you feeling? You were a busy man today. You just went right from the bar at Stout, one day to recover, and then just 26 shows today, 28 shows.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah, the show at Stout, which was awesome. I'm sure we'll have plenty of callbacks to that. And then Sunday, which was really my last day off for a while because Big Ten starts Friday and goes into Saturday. Me and the wife each cooked up something special. She did sauce and ravioli. I grilled up a steak, put it all together with a loaf of semolina. And then Monday you wake up, Sims and I previewed 4 divisions, I want to say, and then we'll do 4 more tomorrow morning we're recording this. And then fantasy football happy hour where we're doing position previews every day. And then here you and I are, and in less than 20 hours, I'll be at Citi Field interviewing Keith Hernandez for the SMY 20th anniversary. So it's just one of those weeks where, and I love it. I love like kind of being on the go all the time, but Stout really kicked things off. As Adam Gase would say, hyperdrive.
Hyperdrive,
which
by
the way,
that's what I'm laughing about now. Kaz.
Nobody could get. Kaz, who's doing our contestant a solid, decided to phone in a friend and mix it up with another Gaseism. It was just unbelievable. A great atmosphere, which reminds me, a huge thank you to the Beat. It's really cool that we hosted an event with, thank you to everybody that showed up, because it's amazing turnout, and that's why we can have these events, because believe it or not, putting these together, it takes a large investment. So when people show up and put back in, we can continue to do them, which we're grateful for, but also really cool that, Joe, like you started Turn on the Jets as a blog. I started as a blogger and eventually a podcaster with you. And for us to have an event with that many Jet fans, and then Rich Samini, Kaz, obviously Zach, who's a part of our, crew as a whole, Antoine, it's really, really cool to do an event like that.
Yeah, it's good to have everyone just hanging out and getting along. I remember being younger and like going after the beat writers and doing beat writer rankings and stuff. And
I
now,
remember those.
As you get a little older, a little wiser, a little more empathetic to the sports media landscape, and also get to know people, you realize
they're just doing their job.
People are doing their jobs, and they're generally good dudes and gals out there. So we are recording this Monday night. Usually we record Tuesday night. We're going to release the pod tonight. War Room will run tomorrow. War Room is going to be a slightly more evergreen episode where we're going to talk about some of our season-long predictions for the Jets, some over-unders, some real, some fake, but start really talking about the bigger picture of the season. Pods next week will be very heavy Jets Steelers, as you can imagine. I want to get some roster discussion in, because in the next 24 to 36 hours, the Jets will get down to 53. They'll make some other moves after that in terms of the waiver wire trades. One thing I always, I think of at this point, there shouldn't be any transactions in terms of players being cut over the next day or so that have a massive impact on the Jets season. If there is, that's probably a bad sign if like cutting Jamin Davis ends up being a big problem. And while I like dudes like Brandon Smith, and I hope he makes the team, realistically, if he does make the team, he's going to be the 5th or 6th receiver and probably be inactive every week. And if he's more than that, that's probably a troubling sign. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but I do encourage people not to freak out too much about spot 50 to 53 on the roster. One, because they're likely to turn over like 4 times throughout the season, not even just before week 1, but also throughout the year, like when other moves are made. And if you're down to your 3rd, 4th stringers needing to play meaningful reps, that's probably a pretty bad sign. All that being said, what's like the main thing you're looking for between now and the deadline of the decisions the Jets will need to make? And I'll say that this time next week when we're recording, we'll have a feel for the final roster going into the Steelers game.
Like game week prep.
Week prep. Right now, they're still in quote-unquote training camp mode, according to Aaron Glenn. They treated today like a training camp practice. So I wouldn't overanalyze who was there and who wasn't there. But what are the main guys you're looking for? What are the main things you're looking for internally or externally? Because there's still been a lot of trades moving throughout the league.
That's the number one thing I have my eye on is, does this team make a move for a wide receiver? I think they know internally it's not good enough right now, which, it's kind of interesting. We haven't had the D-line combo in full yet. It's one of those weird ones where you don't get the credit back because, in my opinion, they kind of blew it with a deep draft class.
Yep.
But you do get credit for showing that you can get creative on the fly and kind of correct what seemed like a little bit of a mistake, which was this defensive tackle group going into camp, and got two players that I'm really excited about in different modes. Like Harrison Phillips is a proven run stuffing two gap kind of player that's, getting close to 30, but like he's good at that job and makes good money because he is good at that. That's a savvy acquisition.
Yep.
And then Juwan Briggs is different because he's kind of an ascending talent, where Juwan Briggs might be a legitimate rotational run stuffer as well with a lot of power. So, it's like, we're not happy about how you handled that in the offseason, but it's really great for Muji and co to show, hey, we can get creative on the fly to fix a problem that now we feel good about. And wide receiver kind of feels exactly the same in a way, because it's right. You have your Quinnen Williams, which is Garrett Wilson. And then you have a lot of veterans that you probably like more than the general public, like Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson, and that's okay. But you're bumping them up into roles. This kind of goes back to like Tufele and Cower a little bit. You're bumping them up into roles that are probably 2 full spots higher than what they should be. So is there now the difference is, I think this market, it's going to be a little tricky to get that wide receiver because a lot of teams need wide receiver help right now. There's suspensions out there. There's health problems out there. It's a position that, and how much 11 personnel teams run, teams kind of have 3 starting wide receivers a lot of the time. So if the Jets don't get a wide receiver, I'm not going to sit here and be like, how did they blow this? But it's the number one thing that I'm watching because I think they know, we'd love to go out and get an upgrade as a number 2 for our offense and kind of bump Reynolds or Johnson, down to the 3, and Arian Smith more into that developmental number 5-ish kind of role.
It's interesting with D-tackle, whereas if in March free agency opens, they sign Harrison Phillips, they acquire Briggs, then they never get Nandi, who they end up trading and somehow getting anything back
Which
for.
Which is just so wild because he looked beyond done this summer.
Almost as crazy as the rumors that they might get something for Carter Warren, which would truly blow my mind. But if they had done those moves in March, especially with having Briggs, I think we would have been gentler on the day 3 decision not to take a D-tackle, because you would have been like, you know what? Oh, maybe they think Briggs is that guy, right? Maybe he's the developmental guy, and that's why they didn't take him. You still could have made a case they should have drafted one just because of the depth of the class. But if those moves just happened 4 months ago, all that time we spent talking about D-tackle, you're like, all right, they got 2 good starters with Quinnen, 1 great starter in Quinnen, 1 good starter in Phillips. They got a young guy you feel good about developing in Briggs. And then you got a couple other veterans who you hope you could squeeze some stuff out of with Cowart and Tufele, and then Leonard Taylor, who has some upside if he makes the team. Receiver, a guy that I've long been a fan of, that I loudly advocated for the team to sign instead of Allen Lazard a few years ago, is now in the trade block, in Jacoby Myers. One of the few Patriots I liked when he was on the Patriots. He's just one of those guys that is always open and catches everything and likes being a complimentary player. You never hear any issues with him. Has a great feel for the zone. I think he was a quarterback in college, and he runs routes like it because he knows where to find soft spots in the zone. And he was the number 1 guy I wanted the Jets to get in free agency. They get Lazard as part of the, ploy to get Rodgers
deal,
and
of course.
What did Myers do? Like, he had 1,000 yards last year. I think he's only 28 right now. And 1,000 yards, like, not in a good situation with the Raiders. And
right.
Look, a lot of teams are going to want Jacoby Myers. He's a good starter, a good number 2 receiver. Are the Jets going to do what it takes? I don't know what the price is for Jacoby Myers off the top of my head. My sense is that, is it like a conditional 3rd round pick or something, like a 4th round pick? It's probably somewhere in there. I don't know. Also, is he going to want to get paid, and how
that's the bigger part of the trade.
Yeah.
The trade is you're trading because you feel like you could pay him, where the Raiders have said we are not.
What are you looking at per year for a guy like Myers, where, if you're only, let's say, all right, it's a 4th, but you got to pay him and you're going to spread the money over the next 2 or 3 years. And can he be a good starter at 28, 29, and maybe 30 for you. Like, I'm not loudly standing on the table saying the Jets should go do this because I think other teams will be more aggressive who think of themselves more as immediate contenders. But
Right.
you want to talk about a guy who I think at a minimum could plug and play and start the next 2 years next to Garrett Wilson and be a totally competent number 2 receiver and have, 750 yards each of those 2 years. And it's just your resource allocation from a dollar standpoint. I mean, what are you comfortable paying him?
That's the entire thing. And this is always the tricky part with guys that are unhappy with their deals is the public, especially when it's not reported on a lot, is like, oh, it makes so much sense to, go get that guy, or why aren't they paying him? Look how long Terry McLaurin took. Terry McLaurin turns 30 years old very shortly, like in a couple of weeks. And everyone's like, why wouldn't the Commanders just pay him? He's a huge part of their team. They're in a contention window. And then, there was a lot of back chatter, and this is something we talked about on the Sims pod today, that like he wanted top receiver money, and and they found middle ground, so they got it done, which is great for the Commanders. But sometimes it's people always side with the player, and the players in this league need to get everything they can because the shelf life is insane. But there's also times where the team is like, we can't go there. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense for us mathematically. The Raiders are probably thinking this. The Raiders are probably looking around like, man, we'd love to have Jacoby Myers for one more year, especially he is significantly underpaid. He's paid about $11 million a year, and he outproduces that. I mean, that's hilarious, that number.
It's Al Lazard money.
Right.
It was Al Lazard money.
You look at the money around the league, and you just kind of laugh at that situation, knowing like so he's right that he should want another contract. Like you said, he's 28. He turns 29 in November, so he should be trying to cash in right now. And the Raiders just drafted his replacement, right? Yep. They took 2 receivers that are going to play. I don't think Jack Besh is going to play right away this year if Myers does play, but they also took Deontay Thornton, a speed threat as well. So they're an offense that their future is Brock Bowers, obviously Gentry running the ball, but Thornton and Besh at wide receiver as well. They have a younger player in Trey Tucker. Myers is really good, but the Raiders have probably made their decision. Otherwise, they would have paid him already when he asked for this, because they drafted 2 guys with decent draft capital. So Myers is sitting there going, well, just get me out of here now. Why should I play on an under market value deal? I'll go somewhere else and get paid. It does feel like one of those moves. If he has to be paid, I mean, you could be talking about, like you said, a conditional 4. Honestly, these deals for receivers that need to get paid, the real question, like you said, getting back to the entire point is that'll dictate if the Jets are in on this or not, is what is the actual number? Yeah. Is he happy with playing out on the contract he's on this year at 11 mil, and you tack on, one more year to the deal that is for $22 million. And I'll pull up some comps for wide receivers in that range. I'm just throwing a number out there. But the bottom line is, like, this isn't a player that is going to be playing this is kind of the problem in a way that the Commanders had. McLaurin is their number 1 wide receiver. He's played with a lot of bad quarterbacks and was really good with their franchise quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And he was probably at the negotiating table like, hey, pay me like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And the Commanders are like, well, you're good, but you're not Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and, one of those top guys. Jacoby Brissett, these are the hardest guys to figure out how to pay them, because Jacoby Myers knows that he's not obviously the top wide receiver in the NFL. So what it's like, for instance, right now, Chris Godwin and Devontae Adams make $22 million a year, right? Godwin signed that deal taking less. He would have got more from the Patriots. So you can't say, well, Chris Godwin, well, he's hurt and he took less. Devontae Adams, older. Stephon Diggs is around 21.
It's crazy.
Even Christian Kirk makes 18.
Yeah.
So Calvin Ridley makes 23. So I would actually think Myers is around that Kirk number, maybe a raise up to 18 mil.
Yeah.
Are the Jets comfortable allocating about $50 million to 2 wide receivers for the next 2 years?
It's tough with the kind of offense they're going to run, right?
It's very tough with their kind of offense, but it's not impossible because they're not paying either tackle.
Yep.
They, aren't paying a quarterback in reality in terms of what actual quarterbacks get paid.
But if you went out tight end,
if you went out and got Myers, you are 100% saying goodbye to one of Simpson or ABT.
Yeah.
There is no world where you keep both the guards. I'd love if they did. I want them to. These are kind of the decisions that eventually you do have to make, because there's a lot of guys due on this team.
This could be proven wrong in the next 36 hours, but I feel like offensively, the Jets, if anything, maybe go get a veteran tight end to take Ruckert's role, like a pure blocking tight end
That'd be smart.
instead of the receiver. And they're going to say, look, with Fields, we're going to run him more than any quarterback in the NFL who's, not named Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. Garrett's going to get a ton of targets, then Brees, then Mason Taylor, then probably a little bit of Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. And by the time we get down to our next receivers, how many targets are we really even talking for
Right.
Reynolds and Tyler Johnson and Arian Smith? Is Stone Smart even currently ahead of those guys in the target pecking order, especially if you'll get like a proper number 2 blocking tight end? And if you go get a Myers, are you hoping Fields is throwing enough where you're going to have 2 receivers who can chew up that target volume? Again, I love the player. I will talk myself into it if they go get someone like him. And maybe it's someone with a lower profile who's just a little more proven, has a little more juice than a guy like Josh Reynolds at this stage of his career, because Reynolds is exactly as what he is. And in a good normal week for the Jets, they're probably hoping Reynolds could have 2 catches for 20 yards on 3 targets and keep the chains moving and line up in the right place and block a little bit. And that's it. When they're throwing the ball, they're going to want to be throwing to the running backs. They're going to be throwing to Garrett. And they're going to want to be throwing to Mason Taylor. And there ain't going to be that many more targets left after that if the Jets are playing on the script that they want to. So that's something to keep in mind. And that's why I'm also, again, watching the tight end position, because Ruckert hasn't earned a spot in the team, right? If he makes the team, it's just because they can't find anything else out there. But that guy has not earned one of the 53 spots. And he has not earned being active every week and playing a big role on the offense, right? Andrew Beck has probably done more of that. And, can he play in that fullback, backup tight end hybrid role? Smart's shown a little more juice. He can bring more in the passing game. And Taylor's going to be out there a ton. He's probably going to play 70 snaps week 1, which is exciting, but will bring, some downside with it for a rookie. So that's what I'll keep in mind on, offense. Defensively, I'd still love if they had another edge.